right, everyone get ready because today we are going deep on flirting.
Ooh, fun.
It's going to be good.
Mm.
You know, whether you are getting ready for a date, maybe you are trying to improve your social skills, or if you're just curious about how attraction works,
Right.
this is for you.
Okay.
We've got this really interesting guide all about how to flirt with women.
Okay.
And we're going to break it down. We're going to figure out what still makes sense today, what
Yeah.
maybe doesn't really apply anymore,
Yeah.
and maybe was just a little bit cringy.
Oh, I love that. Let's expose the cringe.
Oh yeah, there's going to be some cringe. We're going to find it. But most importantly, we're going to get those key takeaways that can actually help you understand this whole dance of attraction, you know?
Totally. And it's interesting how this guide starts out. It's all about confidence. It's like the foundation of flirting.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean you just like strut into a room. It's
Right.
more about like how we deal with our own anxiety and then project this feeling of being self-assured, you know?
So the source actually says to fake it till you make it when it comes to confidence. But doesn't that seem, I don't know, kind of inauthentic?
That's interesting. Well, I think we should think of it less as putting on an act and more about showcasing those confident parts of yourself.
Okay.
You know, those parts that are maybe hiding under all that self-doubt? It's like, do you make those parts shine through even when you're not feeling so great on the inside?
So what's the secret?
Yeah.
How do we fake it in a way that's not fake?
So the source mentions a few things, like how you stand making eye contact, even using humor to make you seem relaxed. But what's really cool is that all of that outward stuff can actually trigger internal changes. It's like this mind-body loop. You stand tall, you look people in the eye, and your brain is like, wait, maybe I am confident.
So it's not just about appearances. It's like
Right.
we're hacking our own psychology.
Totally. But there's a difference between confidence and arrogance.
Right.
And that's where being real comes in.
Right.
You're not trying to be someone else. You're just letting your true self shine through, even with all the nerves and anxieties.
So confidence is like step one. What's the next level in this whole flirting thing?
Okay, so the source talks about eye contact.
Oh yeah, I've heard that before.
I'm sure you have.
The guide actually says to hold someone's gaze for 3 seconds. Then smile, nod, or even wave at them. Is 3 seconds like the magic number?
You know, it's amazing that eye contact is not just about showing interest. It actually helps people know when it's their turn to talk. It helps build a connection.
Right.
And it sends all sorts of signals. It's like a silent dance. But saying it has to be 3 seconds, that's a little too simple. The situation matters a lot.
Okay, so the source talks about what to do if you get caught looking at someone. It says don't look away quickly, hold the gaze, smile confidently, and then look away. But that seems a little forced, right?
That's where you have to read the room. Sometimes looking at someone for too long is a bad thing. You
Yeah.
have to pay attention to how the other person is reacting. Flirting should be something you both enjoy. It's not a staring contest.
Yeah, it shouldn't be creepy.
Not creep.
Okay, so how do we do it? Right? How do we use eye contact to make a connection without freaking someone out?
You have to pay attention to body language. If someone looks away or seems uncomfortable, you back off. It's all about both people being into it.
Got it. Making a note of that.
Yep.
So we've got confidence, eye contact.
Huh.
The source also says humor is really important for flirting.
Right.
What do you think about that?
I mean, there's a reason why people say laughter is the best medicine.
Yeah.
You release endorphins, you feel less stressed, and you start to associate good feelings with the other person. But it's not just about telling jokes.
Okay.
It's about finding something funny together that makes the conversation more lively.
Now the source says to not use too much self-deprecating humor.
Uh-huh.
It says keep it light and playful and don't put yourself down.
Yeah.
But isn't a little self-deprecation kind of endearing?
Sure, a little bit can be charming,
Okay.
but if you do it too much, it makes you seem insecure, which is not really attractive.
Right.
The point is to use humor to show off your wit and personality, not your insecurities.
So it's about finding that balance where humor makes you more attractive and doesn't do the opposite.
Right.
And I guess humor is different for everyone.
Totally. What one person finds hilarious, another might find offensive. It all depends on the person and the situation.
The source also mentions playful teasing as a way to flirt,
Oh, yeah.
to create that push and pull.
It's fascinating from a psychological point of view.
Oh, really?
Yeah, playful teasing, when done right, lets you test boundaries, show a little vulnerability, and can even make someone more attracted to you. It's like saying, I feel comfortable enough with you to joke around, but I'm also really interested in you.
So the source suggests keeping it lighthearted, mixing it with compliments and being aware of boundaries. But teasing can go wrong pretty easily, right?
Oh, for sure. Consent and paying attention are so important. What one person finds playful, another might find hurtful. You have to be really aware of how the other person is reacting. It's like a dance. You have to be in sync.
You always have to be reading the room and adjusting to how the other person is feeling.
Exactly. And if you're not sure if something is okay, it's always better to be on the safe side.
That's probably good advice for life in general.
Probably.
Okay, let's talk about touch. The source mentions using touch when flirting.
Oh yeah, touch. Touch is such a powerful way to communicate, but it really depends on the culture and the person. What's okay in one situation might be completely inappropriate in another.
Right. So the source suggests starting with subtle touches, like a light touch on the shoulder, an elbow bump, or high five.
Yeah, I think those are good places to start because they let you see how the other person reacts without being too forward. But again, consent is super important.
Okay.
You have to pay attention to their body language, their personal space, and what they say. If someone seems uncomfortable, you stop right away.
It's all about respecting boundaries and making sure everyone feels safe and comfortable.
Exactly. Flirting should never feel like you're pressuring someone or making them uncomfortable. It should be a positive and enjoyable experience for both people.
That's a good point. Let's move on to compliments. The source says to go beyond just complimenting someone's looks. Is that really important when it comes to flirting?
You know, compliments about someone's appearance can be nice. But focusing on their personality, their interests, or their efforts can have a much bigger impact.
Okay.
It shows you're seeing them as a person, not just for how they look. You're genuinely interested in who they are.
Right. The source suggests complimenting their energy, their laugh, or how their face lights up when they talk about something they're passionate about.
I love that.
Those seem way better than saying, "You have beautiful eyes."
Totally. Those are the kind of compliments that really make someone feel good because they're specific, thoughtful, and genuine. They show you're paying attention and that you appreciate them for who they are.
The source also says to be specific with your compliments. So instead of saying, "I like your outfit," you could say, "That color really brings out your eyes." Being specific just makes it seem like you put more thought into it, right?
Right. It shows you're not just throwing out random compliments. You're actually paying attention.
So we've covered confidence, eye contact humor, playful, teasing, touch, and compliments.
We've been busy.
I know. What else does this flirting guide have for us?
Well, it mentions using sarcasm, which can be kind of risky when you're flirting.
Okay, the source says to be careful with sarcasm, especially when you're first getting to know someone.
Yeah.
What's the problem with sarcasm?
It's all about your tone of voice and how you say it. It can easily be misunderstood, especially if you don't know the person well.
Right.
It can come across as mean or rude if you don't do it right.
So maybe it's better to just be straightforward and funny until you know the person better.
That's probably a good idea. If you do use sarcasm, make sure it's lighthearted and easy to understand.
Yeah.
You want them to laugh, not wonder if you're being serious.
So far, it seems like being able to read the room and understand the person you're with is really important for flirting.
Absolutely.
It's not just about following rules, it's about adapting to the situation and the person.
That's a great point. Flirting is more of an art than a science. It's about using these tips as guidelines, but
Yes.
ultimately trusting your gut and being yourself.
And that's what makes it so interesting, right?
Right.
It's all about human connection.
Yeah.
And that's always going to be a little messy and unpredictable.
Yeah.
But that's also what makes it exciting. We've covered a lot in this first part of our deep dive into flirting.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to talk about. Make sure to join us for part 2, where we'll go even deeper into the psychology of attraction and explore even more strategies for navigating this complex and intriguing world of flirting.
I can't wait. Welcome back to our deep dive into flirting. We're picking up right where we left off.
I'm ready to keep going. We were talking about how flirting is an art, not a science.
Yeah.
And this source keeps saying that. And it mentions faking it till you make it when it comes to confidence, but I'm still not so sure. Doesn't that go against being authentic?
That's a pretty common misunderstanding. Faking it doesn't mean you pretend to be someone you're not. It's more about like finding those parts of yourself that might be hidden because you're nervous or insecure. It's like letting that inner rock star of yours take the stage, even if they're a little scared.
I'm starting to get it.
Yeah.
But how do you actually fake it and make it seem real?
Right.
And how does that lead to actual confidence? Because if it seems forced, won't people be able to tell?
That's where this whole thing about self-perception comes in.
Uh-huh.
The source talks about those outward behaviors we talked about, posture, eye contact, using humor to seem relaxed.
Yeah.
It says they can actually change how you feel inside.
Okay.
Imagine you're feeling anxious in a social situation, but you decide to stand up straight and make eye contact. That can actually tell your brain that you're confident, even if you don't feel it at first.
So you're tricking your brain.
Kind of. It's using the connection between your mind and body to create this feedback loop. The more you act confident, the more you start to believe it, and that belief then makes you act even more confident. It's pretty cool.
That makes sense. It's like when you force yourself to smile and then you actually start to feel a little happier.
Right.
But what about people who just aren't confident in social situations?
Yeah.
Can they really fake it and have it work?
That's a good question, and that's where it gets a little tricky. For someone with real social anxiety, it's not just about acting confident.
Yep.
It might mean working on their self-esteem and dealing with those anxieties. But even then, practicing those outward behaviors can be part of it. It's like taking small steps towards feeling better about yourself.
So it's not a magic solution, but it can be helpful.
Yeah. It's about realizing that confidence is a skill you can learn, not just something you're born with.
Okay.
And like any skill, it takes practice. But the more you practice, the easier it gets.
This is making me think about flirting in a whole new way. It's not about some secret formula. It's about understanding how people connect.
Exactly. And that's what makes this source so interesting. It's not just about superficial techniques. It's about encouraging you to know yourself and grow as a person.
So flirting isn't just about finding a partner. It's about becoming a more confident and well-rounded person.
Absolutely. Learning to handle social situations, manage anxiety, and connect with people authentically, those are skills that help you in all parts of life.
This is also interesting. There was one thing in the source I wanted to go back to.
What's that?
It talks about building tension as a key part of flirting, but it doesn't really explain it.
Ah, yes, the art of creating that will they or won't they feeling.
Right.
This is where flirting gets really interesting and a little more complicated.
So how do you build tension without seeming like you're not interested?
It's about finding that balance between showing you're interested and still being a little mysterious. It's not about playing games, but letting things develop naturally.
So it's about pacing, pausing, and letting the anticipation build.
Exactly. It's about making the other person want more, not overwhelming them with attention or trying to rush things.
This makes flirting sound like a dance with its own rhythm and flow.
I like that analogy. It's about being in tune with the other person, responding to their cues and creating that feeling of anticipation together.
This source seems to be about men flirting with women.
Right.
Do you think these ideas apply to same-sex flirting or just flirting in general?
That's a great question. Even though the source is written from a heterosexual male perspective, I think a lot of the main ideas are universal.
Okay.
Confidence, humor, genuine compliments, the ability to make a connection. Those are attractive qualities, no matter your gender or sexual orientation.
So it's not about sticking to specific gender roles. It's about finding those things that make people attracted to each other.
Exactly. Flirting is basically about showing interest and creating a connection. How we do that might change based on culture and personal preferences, but the psychology behind it stays the same.
That's good to know. It means this information is helpful for anyone who wants to improve their social skills and feel more comfortable interacting with others.
For sure. And that's a key point here. Flirting isn't just about romance, it's about becoming more aware of how we connect with each other.
This deep dive is making me realize there's so much I don't know.
And that's what's so great about it. There's always something new to learn and discover about human interaction. We're always changing, and flirting changes right along with us.
This is making me want to go out and practice. But before I do, there's something I need to clear up. The source says to be aware of cultural differences when flirting,
Right.
but it doesn't really go into detail. Do you have any advice on how to handle that?
That's a super important point, and it shows how important it is to be sensitive and aware of other cultures.
Okay.
What might be seen as playful and flirty in one culture could be seen as too forward or even offensive in another.
So how do you find that balance? Is there a universal guide to flirting across cultures?
I wish there was, but there's no one-size-fits-all answer. It's about being respectful, observant, and willing to learn. If you're talking to someone from a different cultural background, it's always a good idea to do some research or even ask them about what's considered appropriate and respectful in their culture.
It seems like open communication is really important, not just when you're flirting, but in any situation where you're interacting with people from different cultures.
Absolutely. It's about being aware of our own cultural biases and being open to understanding different points of view. And that's a really valuable skill to have in all areas of life.
This is making me think about all the ways we communicate without even realizing it. Our body language, our tone of voice, even our cultural norms. It's like we're all speaking this secret language,
Yeah,
but we don't always have the key to understand it.
I like that. And learning to understand those signals is something we do throughout our lives. The more we pay attention, the more we become aware of those subtle ways we communicate.
This has been such a helpful conversation. I feel like I'm seeing flirting in a whole new way.
I'm glad to hear that. And remember, this is just the beginning. We'll be back for part 3 of this episode, where we'll wrap up our deep dive and look at some final takeaways from this insightful guide.
And we are back for the final part of our deep dive on flirting. I feel like we've learned so much. It's like we've unlocked all the secrets.
I know, right?
We've talked about confidence, eye contact, humor, touch compliments. I mean, is there anything left to learn?
You know, there are a few more things in this guide that I think are worth talking about.
Okay, I'm ready. What else is there?
So, the source mentions vulnerability when it comes to flirting.
Oh, really?
And that's pretty interesting. It says that showing a little bit of vulnerability can actually make you more attractive.
That seems kind of counterintuitive. Doesn't that go against everything else we've been talking about? Like being confident and sure of yourself.
All right. That's what we usually think. We think we have to show our best selves to be attractive. But sometimes that can actually make it harder to really connect with someone.
So you're saying it's better to let our guard down a little bit?
Yeah, exactly. Think about it. When someone tells you something personal, like a fear or a dream or even an embarrassing story, it shows they trust you. And it makes you feel like you can do the same.
Okay.
It creates a connection that you don't get from just talking about surface level stuff.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like saying, this is the real me, good and bad, and that can be really attractive. But
Right.
how much vulnerability is too much? You don't want to tell someone your deepest secrets on the first date.
Oh, definitely not. It's about finding the right balance. Sharing something small that shows you're human, that can really build a connection. But telling someone too much can be overwhelming.
Right.
It's about showing your true self, but being aware of the situation and where you are in the relationship.
This makes me think about all those times I didn't share something personal because I was afraid of what people would think.
Yeah.
Maybe I missed some chances to connect with someone.
Maybe. We often miss those chances because we're so focused on looking perfect.
This whole conversation is changing how I think about flirting. It's not just about techniques and strategies. It's about being open and real and maybe even a little vulnerable.
I'm glad you're getting so much out of it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most important things we can learn from all of this. Flirting is really about connecting with people. It's about expressing interest, building rapport, and creating that spark.
This has been so interesting. We've learned about confidence, eye contact humor, teasing, touch compliments, and even vulnerability.
Yeah, we covered a lot.
It feels like we've gone deep on this.
We have. But remember, flirting is something you keep learning about. The more you practice, the more you'll develop your own style and find what works best for you.
So what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember? What's the most important takeaway from all of this?
I would say approach flirting with curiosity, playfulness, and respect. Be yourself, be present, and most importantly, have fun.
That's great advice. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the art of flirting. Till next time, keep those sparks flying.